3, go.
All right, when you're changing out a membrane, you're going to be removing the housing and the membrane. You're going to have to disconnect this tube here. You're going to have to disconnect this this pressure gauge assembly. Those are different on different machines, but typically there's some kind of connection to a tube that needs disconnected, and then you're going to screw this out of the RO housing, and you're going to screw it into either your new housing, or you're just going to screw it out so that you don't break it while you're trying to work with it. Also, around it from the front, you can see this is the good water line, and it's going to need to be disconnected here. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that. You have to push up on the collar and then pull the tubing out, okay? And then possibly here, some kind of line there. And then from the back here, you can see, that this the whole unit will twist out, okay? And you'll probably have to re-thread it to put it back either in your new housing or whenever you remount your membrane. But we don't want to break this when we're working on it after we take this out, okay? You can see that it might be, you're gonna have water come out, that's okay. All right, you set that aside. We're gonna disconnect the line coming up from the pump to the top of the RO. This is where the water goes in. This is in, bottom is out. If you're ever wondering if this thing's right side up, it either should have top and bottom written on it or an arrow pointing down, because that's the direction that the water's flowing through the RO, okay? So that's, of course, that's a collar, push fitting, push the collar down, pop that out. Now, this is hanging here on a hanging rack. A lot of times you're gonna run into a plastic clamp mount, and it's a 9/16 ratchet, and a lot of times we'll send you a ratchet and you'll just take that those bolts, the nuts off of those bolts, and remove that clamp, okay? But we don't have that situation here. Now, when you take this off, one of the things you want to be careful of is that there's a fitting here that you don't want to break. It sticks out just a little bit further than the black cap, okay? So if I set this down like this, or if I drop it hard directly on it, it could break that fitting, okay? We want to try not to break that fitting. So I'm going to keep it around the edges of the black rim while I'm working on it. Now, we always want to remove and insert our membrane from the top. We don't ever want to insert a membrane from the bottom, okay? Leave that side of the cap in the housing, all right? And we're going to work here. Now, this clip right here is what's holding this cap in, all right? And it's easiest if you pop this out like that, and then you can see that it peels away from the groove, and now this cap is free, okay? Now it's stuck. You're not going to be able to remove it with your hand because it's stuck in there, but the best way to do it, to get the other membrane out, is to turn it upside down and drop it. You can take it outside, drop it on the side of the curb, and it'll pop it out. I'm going to show you in the trash can here. Hopefully this will work good. I'm just going to turn this upside down like this, and I'm going to drop it on this sturdy edge here, okay, in hopes that that membrane's going to drop out, okay, just like that. Okay, so working out pretty good. I'm going to set this here for now. Don't want to drop that. There's a couple things that I want to show you that you're going to have to remove. This is super important. All right, so we need two things. We need this cap. We need this O-ring. All right, without this O-ring, then this the RO housing will not seal. You can just kind of twist and pop that off. There's two little O-rings inside there. It's always good to just double check and make sure those are there. This O-ring is gonna go, it's gonna set right on this ledge here. Okay, just if you see just inside here, there's a little ledge. All right, it might be hard to see, but whenever you put your hands on it, you're gonna see that this O-ring slides in just like that, okay? All right, and we're gonna drop our new membrane. This is the membrane here, okay? And one of the things that you know, how you know what's the top and what's the bottom, you can see on the bottom there's no black rubber seal. On the top here, that's the black rubber seal. That's how you know what's the top. So whenever you drop this in to the housing, your new membrane into the housing, you got to make sure this is top. If you turn it upside down like this, you're not going to be able to make good water. It will not work. Okay, so just remember, this ring is always at the top, and you have to drop it in from the bottom. So the way that you would do that is, again, I don't want to break that fitting that's on the center bottom that I showed you earlier, so I'm going to keep this at an angle and just let it slide in like this, about that far. Drop it, and it's going to bounce just like that. Now that's set in there. Okay, I have my O-ring in there. Okay, and typically we'll send you some O-ring grease, and you can grease that up there. You can grease the inside of these O-rings here, and you can grease this ledge. All right, that makes it easier to put it in and out. Okay, and again, I'm keeping this on the edges of the black rim because it's sturdy and we're not breaking that bottom piece. Okay, then I'm going to take my cap and put it back in there like this. Now it's really difficult to push that in there. All right, that's why we're going to send you this rubber mallet. Okay, and so you can just tap it in. Rubber mallet keeps you from tearing your plastic up, and you want to keep a foot behind it because I can't put it directly like this. If I start banging on it like this, that 3/8 fitting is going to bust on the floor, on the concrete. Okay, so I'm gonna put it at an angle like this, put my foot behind it, and then I'm just gonna tap this in like that. Now I don't know if you can see in the video, but now I can see my little groove all the way around, that my clip that's gonna secure the cap, that it's gonna fit in. Now the way that you know, if this is not set all the way in, this will not go in. If this does not go in, then your cap is not set and you're gonna have problems. It's gonna blow off and you're gonna have a flood. Okay, the way that you set your clip here is you put the side that doesn't have the tab on it, put that in the groove first, and then you just work your way around. Just push it in with your fingers. It snaps in, sets all the way around. By the time you get around here, you can pull this out and it'll snap right in like that. So now this thing is secure, your RO's in, and you're ready to mount it back into the machine. So you might have, like I said, the black clamps. You put this in there, like that. That's your incoming water. You're gonna push this back in. You might have to put your clamps on and tighten your screws and nuts, your nuts on your bolts. You're gonna wanna make sure that you have whatever manifold, however yours is set up. There's probably about 5 different ways that this is done, but this is gonna need a significant amount of thread tape. If you're doing this yourself, I would say about 22 wraps of thread tape, and we'll send thread tape to you typically. Okay, you're gonna need about 22, 24 wraps of thread tape around that, okay, because it's gonna be highly pressurized, 100, 150 PSI. All right, and once you have that thread tape, then you can screw this right into there. And this is your back pressure gauge manifold, okay? And they're set up differently. Sometimes it's set up over here. Sometimes you just have a fitting and you pop a tube out. But you kind of get the general idea here that if this does have a piece screwed in and mounted to the side where the bad water goes, then you're going to have to screw it back in, okay? And you're going to connect your black line or your bad water line here, and then you're going to take that blue line and you're going to push it right back into the center fitting here. And again, this is super important. This is your good water. When you set this back in, you should follow that line through here all the way to your reservoir tank. Okay? Once you have all your tubes set back in, and you can see from back here, your water supply to your RO. You can see back here, okay? Have that set. Once you have all your lines set and you bring it back up to pressure, You want to be able to see your pressure gauge, and you want to test the TDS of your water going into the tank. So if you change the RO membrane, and then when you're done changing it, you go test the TDS at the spout, it's not going to be the new water. You're testing water coming from the reservoir tank. That was made by the RO you just changed. So to test the water coming from this new RO membrane, you have to go in, take the cap off your tank, reach in there, and as the water is filling the tank, take your sample from the water going into the tank, and that will give you your new TDS reading from your new membrane.